So, let's see what happens when we sort of chart, how I would go about charting measure for measure. I would start out with your famous little pyramid thing. And one of the things that we talk a lot about when we do these plays over and over and over again, of course, is like, where's that intermission thing going to be, right? This is the big moment, and every time you put an intermission in, there are pluses and minuses, right? We do not think there were intermissions. I think, personally, there were breaks in the plays. In other words, there's a little kind of treading. Ursula doesn't agree with me, but there's a little bit of treading water sometimes, where I kind of think we're going to have a little zone-out moment, you know, sort of built into the plays a little bit. And in our world, where we turn off all the lights and everybody has to focus, we don't allow for any of that kind of like reflective time. Do you know what I mean? But outdoors and things are happening, and you know, get the torch roll, and you know, whatever. There's a little more fluidity about the sort of, for me, my sense, it's sort of built into, right? So one of the translation issues is how do we sort of work through, how do we translate the conventions of those those events that have been sort of transcribed two-dimensionally, and we think that mostly authorities-wise, to what our conventions are, which are completely different. First of all, we have to have an intermission. You're already breaking the integrity of the structure of the play by putting an intermission. So you have to sort of like lean into that and just say, well, I'm going to break the integrity of the structure, so how can I take it most to my advantage? What's the disadvantage or what's the advantage to where we're going to take it? I mean, this is this 12th night, different act break than I think I've ever seen in this 12th night. And there are pluses and minuses to why you're doing it, right? So, but that's one of the first things you have to sort of figure out. Based on what you think the play is about, and where you kind of think that big moment is, of like, where are all the ducks lined up? Where is the moment before Hedda burns that manuscript? When you cannot go back again, right? You can only go forward. It's halfway through Macbeth, isn't it, when he says, I have stepped so far in blood, to go backwards is the same as to go forward, whatever the line is, right? Right? It's halfway in the play, right? So you can sort of see this perfect sort of structure that you're heading toward. He's like, hey, might as well finish the deal. Might as well, because can't take it back, right? Hedda burns the manuscript, can't take it back. Done, right? That's what you're looking for. It's like, oops, everything's in place, and the only thing to do is you're on your heels and you have to go forward. That's the place you want to take the intermission. You want to kind of leave us with like sort of a little of that suspense, and then you hit the top of the second act, and you finish it, and then everything sort of like comes away from that. That's the idea, right? Okay. So in this particular play, it seems to me we've got 5 acts, which of course is a structure that came into being with the publication of the folio, and I sort of did it proportionally in this way. There are 4 scenes in the first act. There are 4 scenes in the second act. There are 2 scenes in the third act. There are 6 scenes in the fourth act, and there's one big gigundo, 20% of the play, gigundo, 5th act. And I know we talked about this a little bit before, but I also have this theory about where things in the first 10 to 20 minutes of the play are like arrows. Throne of Blood has become a great metaphor for me. That, you know, that great sequence at the end, you know, the arrow sequence, if you've seen the movie. But it's like in these plays, it's like these arrows of theme and character and action and sort of like consequences and what if and how do you touch base with and when you come back to and what's going to be the second piece of it. They all get kind of set out in the first 10 to 20 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take very long in King Lear, actually, for everything he said, does it really? These things do not, he doesn't take a lot of time. There's not a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of time in this play either. All of a sudden, boom, we got a whole new regime in like 90 lines. Boom, off, running, right? It's quick. They're all quick like this, right? Okay. So one of the things that I try to calculate is sort of proportionally how it looks to get a sense for the rhythm of it. And I'm going to show, I'm going to sort of demonstrate a little bit about what that kind of might mean when we're kind of here-ish, right? So this is the 5th act, all of this. This is the 4th act, which has 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 3 little scenes, which is kind of a great, like, right, energy thing, right? 4th act, you got your action here, and actually some people think this is one big act, but it's kind of good to break it into. And then you've got just find it kind of interesting to sort of look at it as one big kind of thing, all right? Just proportionally to look at it. Here's that big scene, 90 lines, right? Then another way to look at it is, how about like compression, right? We talk about Romeo and Juliet, 4.5 days compression. How many days does this play take place? There feels like a little bit of a compression. And I think I'm going to make the big bet statement that I think it takes place in 4 days. And here's day number 1. Okay. Here's day number 2. Here's day number 3. And here's day number 4. Okay? It just sort of gives you a sense of sort of like action-packed, obviously. We're going to kickstart here, right? And then we're going to really kind of set things up past and beyond. And here at this moment is when the Duke is giving us this big speech about kind of like what the pins are. Another way to look at it too for me, sometimes bowling pins, like how you set up all the bowling pins, and then the second act's about knocking them down, right? And it usually takes a lot longer to set them up than it does to knock them down. All right? Same rhythm here. It's the same rhythm here, right? So you can kind of just see a little proportionally. This is usually where intermission takes place. Now, if I were really doing this properly, I probably would have done this to where this scene is up here, because that's where the bed trick happens. And so that's the sort of culmination of all the things that have been set into motion, right? But we've got all the pins ready to rock and roll. Okay? Can you see how so that works? So I'm just taking information that we get from the play. I'm just looking at that's 90 lines, because I like to kind of see proportionally, like what's taken a lot of, how compressed is something? I mean, good God, in 90 lines, the whole world just changed, didn't it? Right? And in this scene, which I'll show you in a second, is the scene where the Duke says, I'm going to be the friar. Right? Short little scene. Big things happen, right? And so then it's all about the weaving, right? We talked about this a lot too, how we weave the play together with different worlds, right? And that also generates energy, generates emotion, it generates rhythm, it moves things forward. And you have to keep, again, in that baton kind of way. What did somebody say in the last scene? What was Lucio doing the last time in that last scene? And as I bring on, as I'm Isabella, whoever it is in the next scene, I have to bring on what happened in the scene before. That's the job. That's how the information gets passed along. Okay? So it just seems to me really interesting to figure out how that segmentation kind of works.